next week. So don't miss that. Well, during last night's debate, Joe Biden, when prompted, described critical race theory as totally innocuous, not a big deal. It's about, quote, racial sensitivity, he said. And obviously, who's against that? Not us, not anyone. Here's what he said.
The fact is that there is racial insensitivity. People have to be made aware of what other people feel like, what insults them, what is demeaning to them. It's important that people know they don't want to. Many people don't want to hurt other people's feelings, but it makes a big difference.
This is the most polite country on the face of the earth. If you've traveled internationally, you know that. Maybe Japan. Certainly this is the most polite Western country in the world. No American wants to hurt anyone's feelings on purpose. So critical race theory is not designed to solve hurt feelings. It's not about racial sensitivity. No. It's a kind of racial supremacy. It teaches that some people are morally tainted because of the color of their skin, the way they were born. That's the definition of racism. It's poison. We should fight against it with everything we have. It's wrong. It's immoral. It's contrary to the Christian message. But it's infiltrated our government. At Sandia National Laboratories, for example, which develops our nuclear weapons, taxpayer-funded trainers told white male employees to write letters of apology to women and people of color. Which women and people of color? All women and people of color. Presumably, they sinned against all of them by who they are. Grotesque. Some agencies are teaching employees that punctuality and diligence are associated with whiteness, and that meritocracy is morally wrong. What kind of damage is this doing to our country long term, to our kids? It's grotesque. So the White House executive order this month ended these trainings in the federal government. It was long overdue. Probably won't be enough. But it's worth considering what's really going on. Peter Kirsanow is a commissioner on the U.S. Civil Rights Commission. He joins us tonight. Peter Kirsanow, thanks so much for coming on tonight. So when I heard the former vice president say critical race theory is just a form of racial sensitivity, I thought, boy, that may be the most misleading thing I've heard in a long time.
It's galactically divorced from reality, and it's clear that, with all due respect to the former vice president, he has absolutely no idea what's going on in our schools, also in our public agencies, in our corporations, academia, everywhere. Critical race theory has been infiltrating these institutions for the last 3 decades, and it's reached kind of a crescendo, and that's why the president acted, and he needed to act, because it got to a point where it was out of control. You just described what's going on. I've seen critical race theory training. I've seen in many corporations, in many public agencies, the types of trainings that you just described, where whites are harangued for being white and are told that they are inherently racist. They are explicitly told that. It's astonishing. It's a violation of Title VI and Title VII of the 1964 Civil Rights Act, but it's going on a regular basis throughout the country, also in our academic institutions. It is toxic, as you've described. It's un-American, but what it does is, along with its adjunct, the 1619 Project, is it undermines the foundation of America. It attacks the justification for America and its institutions. It presumes every system, institution, organization was formulated and constructed to preserve white hegemony. In fact, in some of these trainings, it requests or it commands that employees forswear or abandon all of the traits you've mentioned with respect to discipline, punctuality, accuracy, linear thinking. The obverse of that, of course, is that blacks and people of color aren't that. It's one of the most amazingly racist things imaginable. It is so condescending. It's extraordinary to me that employees sitting there, white, black, whatever, would sit there, and, I mean, if they've got to because they're employees, right? They don't want to lose their jobs, but they take this toxic poison that is inherently racist and absurd on its face. So the executive order that the president signed is, frankly, fairly anodyne, but it needed to be done. And it prohibits public agencies, federal contractors, and federal grantees from having these types of toxic trainings. It's pretty clear. It is simply a restatement of Title VI, Title VII, and it requires these people to have that in their federal contracts. It's long overdue, and what we are seeing in the streets over the last 4 months is the natural result of this kind of toxic training that began K through 12 in a more probably watered down sense, but has continued throughout not only upper academia, but in the workplace. It's a natural, and by the way, Tucker, there are at least 2 studies that show that these kinds of trainings actually have the reverse effect of what they're intended to do. In other words, it increases racial division.
Of course it does. And we're doing that at high volume right now, and it's very sad to watch. Peter Kirsnow, Living Antidote to that. Appreciate your coming on tonight.